Greetings, fellow ones of Cosmo. It seemed to me that there wasn't a lot of Dyson Sphere videos on YouTube. Am I wrong? Whatever. I was looking for something saying, here's a good way to rush through the start of the game. I didn't find that on YouTube, so that's what I'm making now. Obviously, for a game like this, you could spend hundreds of hours building a sphere. But how do you do that well? What does it even mean to do it well? I don't know. I don't have all of those answers yet. But one question I had was, what makes a good starter planet or starter solar system? You can choose a different resource level, so really quantity of resources isn't a big part of what makes one game seed better than another. And you choose the number of systems in the cluster too. So I wanted to see what starter systems look like. But the problem there is that you can't see the starter system until you unlock a tech. And you've got to play for a while, like half an hour before you even get there. Well, you can see the planets right away, but not the resources that those planets have. So the tech that you need to unlock isn't actually that hard to get. So then I set about starting a bunch of games, writing down the seed number, running to the point where I unlocked that tech, and then I was able to write down the system stats, how many planets, what kind, and what resources they had. I'm not sure at what patch it happened, but evidently now all starter systems are very similar. But I'll get into that in another video. Because in this video, I'm going to go over the rush to that technology. It's called Universe Exploration Level 2 and means whenever you zoom out to view the system, you can click on a planet and see its resources. Does your gas giant have just hydrogen and deuterium, or does it have fire ice? Is there anything neat on the other two planets? This tech allows you to see that. So of course I'm doing this over and over, and the trick became, how do I rush this? What am I doing well? What am I doing wrong? And really the key is to make sure you're busy, not waiting around for crafting to finish. And of course the sooner you have stuff automated, the better. One of the things you don't want to do is waste too much time placing stuff in a perfect location or trying to figure out what the perfect location is, like how many resource nodes you can grab with a miner, because in a lot of cases you just put down 2 miners, and planets themselves are huge. You do want things organized, of course, but being pixel perfect is usually a waste of time. Depends on how bad your OCD is and how much you want to worry about it. But yeah, and I think waste some time here placing the miners exactly right, but meh. Alright, so another trick to doing things quickly is to make sure you're using hotkeys and shortcuts rather than mousing everything. For example, to load stuff into your fuel chamber, you don't need to drag and drop. You can just control click on an item in your inventory and it'll automatically transfer over. Ultimately, another trick is to stop caring about aesthetics. But this planet is so pretty. Yeah, I had a hard time with this. The thing is, the pretty green planet will eventually turn into a frozen ball and all life in the system will be gone, because what you're doing is encasing the sun in an opaque shell. Okay, well, theoretically, because the game doesn't actually model that. Anyway, so yeah, I think you need to be in the mindset that you're basically destroying the solar system in order to advance civilization. So that said, I still feel like I don't want to waste trees, and part of that is because in my first game I had trouble with organic crystals, and an easy way of making organic crystals is with logs and plant matter. So I always gathered that stuff before I blew it away by dropping buildings down on top of them. But in a well-built factory, you don't really need to worry about trees and handcrafting organic crystals, because seconds of playtime matter more than minutes that you spend collecting trees. It's really not a good use of time. But you do need, however, stone to make a few things. So collecting rocks off the ground, at least in the early game, isn't that bad. One thing I'm not doing is building storage containers for each item I'm producing, and I'm going to get into this later. Miners can hold up to 50 ore, smelters hold up to 100 or 200 finished products, and assemblers, or these two assemblers, will both hold 20 finished objects. So early game, you don't need containers. I should probably add them for magnetic coils and circuit boards though. Seriously, the amount of time I spend collecting rocks in this game is embarrassing. Alright, so one wind turbine will power one miner. So for the most part, I just build one turbine on one miner. 3 sets for the 3 goods I need a bunch of: iron, copper, and coal. You might ask, why coal? And so that's so that I can keep the mech powered without spending time tearing down trees. Coal lasts a good long while. Eventually you'll turn it into graphite. Anyway, the first priority, however, is iron, because you'll use more of that than anything else. Should you put your second miner on copper or coal? I'm not really sure what the perfect answer, the best answer is. I sometimes did copper. In this game, I did coal. And part of that is it takes a long time to hand make all the mats that you need for a miner and turbine pair. So, yeah. Eventually, you'll need about 12 turbines, I think. And that's to power your 3 miners, 6 smelters, 2 assemblers, and 6 matrix slabs. You can see me here at some point selecting a smelter or a miner and just control clicking its output icon. And that's a quick way to grab everything that it's produced so far. Slightly more mental load than extracting stuff from a storage container, but faster than drag and drop. And you don't really need to spend the resources building storage containers before you get to universe exploration 2. There's also a question of how to arrange a copper belt and an iron belt and a magnet belt to feed your 2 assemblers and get the outputs of both of those over to your matrix labs. And I'll get into that later. So let me first go over everything that I do here in this video. So the first thing is walk over to the iron and start mining it while I set up my research queue. And the things that I queue up are electromagnetism, logistics, metallurgy, assembly, the core upgrade, matrix, and then exploration 1 and 2. The core upgrade isn't strictly needed, but after coming out of late game and having power problems here in game, the starter mech just felt so slow. Plus it's a fairly cheap research, so I don't think it's too bad. Alright, so second task, mine copper and start smelting goods and completing your research tasks. I did set, each time you'll see me setting the hand produced counts to 5, as that fits the requirements for tons of things, and it saves you clicks in the long run. Alright, so after copper, I then run out of mech power, and I putter around a lot waiting for fuel and power. Note that I didn't tear down my starter mech thingy because I was thinking of chasing that achievement, as well as using the placed starship kind of as a memorial location on the planet. Finally, the 3 power cells that you get from it don't really help you out a whole lot, so I didn't think it was a big deal. Anyway, so next, mine-wise, yeah, I ended up building the coal mine second and the copper mine third. And then after those are set up, I set up the 3 iron smelters, 2 for plates and 1 for iron rings, aka magnets. Then 2 more smelters for copper plates, and as all those smelters are draining power, I add more wind turbines. Next comes the 2 assemblers, and then finally the matrix labs. And while I'm waiting for all the research to finish, for the 200 cubes worth of research you need to do this Universe Exploration 2, I upgrade production a bit and add another ring smelter and the 4 more labs. Oof. Seriously, I look at this now and cringe. I think I could do this a lot faster. It takes me until it'll take me until minute 14 here until I get copper smelting working. So I think maybe I could redistribute the smelters better. And I think after a bit of practice, you can do all of this better than I've done. And that's kind of my point. I want to see other players rushing through stages of the game, whether it's an early game like this or landing on a planet and getting production up and running as quickly as possible, or what you do first thing when you land in a new solar system. I'm not yet at the point where I think I can complete 4,000 white cubes in under 10 hours or whatever. I think there's an achievement for finishing it that quickly. Either way, whether it's, I don't know, 10 hours, 6 hours, it's way too much optimization for me right now. I don't even have blueprints for a lot of things. So obviously if I had a smelter down, then I could be collecting the smelter output instead of hand making stuff. I think those first 3 smelters should be 1 each to iron plates, iron rings, and copper plates. Not having the copper plates here is obviously a slowdown. Plus, I queued stuff I didn't really need. A question here, would it be better to research metallurgy before logistics? The thing is, without logistics, there's neither belts nor sorters, but those things are useless in terms of productivity by themselves. And here's an essential trick. You need to balance production with power and research. I think there's a couple options for when you build power. It's either before or after the production that needs it. I think building power early produces nothing. Well, obviously it does nothing. It just sits there and produces power, which you're not even using. Consuming too much power, meanwhile, just slows down production a bit. And eventually, after you build the production, you're back to 100%. Ultimately, I think you're further along if you build production first and power second. That's at least once you have at least a little bit of power in your network. The long pole here, the choke point that makes this research take forever, is research itself. Everything that you need to research and getting everything placed. Not really production output itself. Which is to say, if you had to handcraft everything, that would take even longer. But once you have buildings up and running, I think you're ahead of the game. If I had storage containers, they'd be hella full. 1 smelter of each is enough, at least over the course of 20 minutes, but throughput wise, I need 2, and you'll see that with magnets later in the game. So I think the option is you either build 2 of each smelter or a storage container for each. And I think where that question doesn't matter is with coils and circuit boards, which I think you should have containers for both of those, and although I don't do that here in this game. I should also figure out how to lay out those 2 assemblers better. They both need copper plates, but one needs iron plates and the other needs iron rings, aka magnets. And then I want the outputs from both to be somewhat close because they feed into matrix labs. Topologically, I don't think you can make it pretty without having one belt jump over another or using a sorter to jump over a belt. Whatever. What you see here is that I wind up having to use a sorter to cross over a belt, and I wanted to avoid that because it's slow. These assemblers only run at 75% speed, so of the 2 ingredients that they each consume, one of them they'll take 1 every 1.33 seconds, and the other ingredient they'll consume 2 every 1.33 seconds. And the sorter makes 1.5 trips per second if the belt is right next to the machine. So that's fine for the quick consumption of the good. And it's also fine for the output from these two machines, because both of these machines, again, produce 2 items per cycle. Generally, output is slow, but not necessarily. In fact, the slowest transfer rate is for the copper plate input for both of these. Maybe the best arrangement is just to have copper an extra tile away for both of these machines. If this was a real speed run, I'd have that question settled before I even started the run. And I'd do this run on the same map over and over until I think it was fairly optimal. But I'm not doing this to speedrun. I'm actually doing this to collect data on starting seeds. My criteria for each seed was 4 type O stars in the cluster. And that's only because I don't even know if that's good. But I read somewhere that said that those are the best stars to put Dyson spheres around. So if you're trying to maximize Dyson sphere power, you want those systems. So I kept hitting the random button until I got enough O's, then started the game, then ran until I unlocked Exploration 2, then saved the game, then wrote down stats, then started again with a new seed. I'm not sure what I figured out other than how consistent starting systems are. Like I said above, I'll put that into another video. Meanwhile, if you're trying to do the same thing, I hope you got some idea of playing through that first bit of research faster than you might have otherwise. Do note that if you forgot to write down the system seed, you can see it when you hit escape to go to the save menu. Okay, so now here I have my factory built, and it's time to craft 200 cubes. These assemblers will produce 2 coils and have 2 boards every second. Well, okay, except at 75% speed, so 1.5 coil and board every second. That's enough to feed 4.5 matrix labs, or feed 3 labs and have your mech, plus have half a lab left over. Hence the 3 matrix labs that I build. If I take coils and boards from the 2 assemblers and then make my own cubes, we're running nearly 100%. I'm collecting rocks again and thinking that maybe spending some time just mining a stone quarry would have been better. Yet ultimately I don't think I need that much stone. Smelters need stone bricks and matrix labs need glass, but that's it. Nothing else you build in these 20 minutes requires stone. If I spent time earlier collecting stone rather than trees, I think I'd be set. I can collect a bit of plant matter to feed into my mech, because I'm bored. But theoretically, I should be working on 2 more labs and handcrafting some cubes. And otherwise, just staring at the clock. But that's a speed run for you. Sometimes they're just kind of boring. I do want to note that you should have a copper quarry and an iron quarry right next to your starting location. It's possible that one of them has been covered over by the sea, maybe both if you're truly unlucky, and that's a strangeness in the planet generation code. If that's the case, you're kind of screwed. You'll need to start over with a new seed or wander the planet until you find copper or iron or whatever you need. But the starting zone is designed to have everything you need very close. And if you wander away from that zone, finding all 4 mats close by will be tough. Stone and coal won't be right there as close to your ship as iron and copper, but they should be nearby, although they're not as essential. It's kind of funny, every starting zone on every planet that I've seen looks nearly identical to this map. "20 minutes in, there's so much that I couldn't have done faster, like starting with that extra ring smelter, or just having place smelters themselves faster, or hooking up belts, all sorts of things. I hope you learned something here, and I hope you feel challenged to rush through these first 20 minutes yourself. It feels way too short to be an official speedrun goal, but there is a purpose to it, so it's useful to me to run through the world, figure out what goodies the system has, and then decide if I want to continue or not. So here I am connecting the second magnet smelter. Note that the assembler goes through these things fast enough that I need 2 smelters. Or really, if I had a container, maybe early production, would have stocked up enough extras so that 1 smelter would have been enough. And then there's a question of what you do after you finish the research, and I leave that up to you. Producing blue cubes right here probably isn't that bad, but you probably want to move the research elsewhere, and then I mean elsewhere on the planet. The smelting arrangement is janky. In fact, if I was rushing past this goal, I'd start over at minute 0 and try to make a more organized smelting setup without worrying about rushing through research as quickly as I did. Or maybe you get blue cubes going really, really quickly like I did here, and then move somewhere else on the planet to continue. Whatever, your choice. Have fun, and I'll see you next time.